stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. Rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. And you will see the fame smile. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting.
And here we are. Wow, there's the camera. Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, October the 19th, 2025. We're so glad to be back with you. I have my guest, Wilbur Kilb Hunter, a.k.a. Dr. Kilb from East Tennessee Distillery, joining me today, as he always does on Halloween, when I am so idiotic as to invite him into my home. He always shows up.
Every time.
Yeah.
You're so easy.
Yeah, I know the rules. I mean, I've watched enough horror movies. I've read enough, horror novels. I know the rules, but I can't quit him.
I'm such a charming guest.
That's right. And he's brought with us some stuff from his Vodka Moon line over at the East Tennessee Distillery tonight. We're drinking on some Blood Moon. This is the blood orange flavor that I have here.
The mighty Blood Moon, my friend.
That's right.
The mighty Blood Moon.
So we're back for Halloween once again, and we've had a lot of Halloween discussions over the years. One of the first episodes we did was a Halloween episode where I went around to the sites of Carter County ghost stories. A lot of them described in this book, Haints, Witches, and Boogers by Charles Edwin Price. And it describes a lot of the upper East Tennessee, and I dropped it in the floor. A lot of the upper East Tennessee ghost stories, and in the video that I did on the Iron Mountain Hour, I'll link it in the description. I went around with my Jack Russell Terrier, Orville Redenborker, and we visited the sites of some of these myths, like Granny February and the Old Steel Bridge, and we tell you a little bit more about those. So I'll put that link in the description if you want to check that out. Go ahead. Like I said, I think that's like the third video that we did on the Iron Mountain Hour. That might be the only Halloween episode that has not involved Dr. Kilb.
Yeah.
So go check that out. We appreciate you joining us. And what do you want to tell us about Blood Moon? What exactly are we talking about when we look at Blood Moon here?
Well, if you see our last video of last Halloween, many views, many. I've had people reach out to me, want to know if there's real blood involved. I don't know, maybe.
It's the color of blood.
It is.
Especially in like a 70s horror movie.
It is.
If you
The biggest thing now, Mr. Beef, and you don't mind me calling you Mr.
Absolutely
Beef, after all these years, beef is like real meat, real substances, and that's what I think of you, because you're the real deal. But this is available in Pigeon Forge now. We've penetrated, and I like that word, penetrate. Penetrate.
Yeah, and the teeth penetrate.
Yes, but we're actually in what do you call a tourist city, where there's lots of transients, a lot of people who can get lost.
A tourist trap,
tourist trap, exactly. Yeah, I've kind of I haven't given up on the plasma center, because we've actually made the bloods a lot purer than it was at the beginning of this process. So the blood's a lot, purer. The food is getting the dyes and the artificial, thanks to that Kennedy guy, the one that's still alive. He's more raspy than I am, but he's taking all this stuff out. So he's kind of like doing the doctor's work.
So we can't forget to look out for the vampires.
And supposedly a small worm ate some of his brain. I haven't really got into that yet. But,
That's one of the goals of MAGA, to make America healthy again.
To each their own. As long as you limit vaccines and leave it up to people to decide, and you take out, my Fruit Loops are no longer neon glow-in-the-dark green and orange and blue, which is cool.
Well, that's not what we came to talk about, but I do think Robert F. Kennedy's like the shining star of the Trump administration. So.
Well, you never know what might come up. But yes, the Blood Moon and all my Vodka Moon products are available in Pigeon Forge. That's the plug. But my main concern right now is Halloween.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't mean to say that's not what you should talk about. I just meant, I didn't want to really necessarily get political, but I do like to say it is benefiting the vampires, but a lot of the things Kennedy's doing are really seem to be benefiting the victims of the vampires as well.
Exactly. Well, I could go John Lennon and say, no religion and no politics and all that stuff, but that's never going to happen on a broad scale because people have got to have something to believe in, whether it's politics or God or whatever. But I'm more of a, yourself. You're your own. You are your own savior.
Yeah.
You decide how you live and how your life is going to be, and the ones around you. So I don't need anybody to save Dr. Kilb because I'm good to go, brother.
Well, like they say, the kingdom of heaven lies within, and a lot of people think that means that like you should glorify yourself, and I don't think that's what you mean.
No,
I think you mean what the Bible means when people misinterpret it to think that. But yeah, I agree. You're what you decide to do and the way you treat people is what ultimately matters, in my opinion, as well. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining us, Dr. Kilb.
Always glad to be here. This is like an inner sanctum for me. I can come here and know that sunlight's not going to come out, or somebody's going to throw holy water on me, or judge me for my music that I listen to. So this is sacred ground. And I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. And you're certainly welcome anytime, and not just Halloween, by the way. And hopefully we'll have Dr. Kilb back in the studio with us at another date this fall and get into some other topics.
Maybe Christmas.
Because one of the things that I was going to talk about tonight, when we get into start talking about spooky stories, really Christmas is, in the Western European tradition, that's when the ghost stories were told. We really didn't get into spooky stories at Halloween. We're talking 18th, 19th century is where it really started in America, at least, and in England. They always had Halloween, what they had All Hallows Eve. Mm-hmm. Remember, this was a Catholic tradition. It goes back to about 600 AD, where
I remember that.
I guess you would as an ancient vampire. Yeah. But around 600 AD, then the Catholics they made it All Saints Day. Yeah. I think it was May 13th, I believe, starting out. And as the Catholics and the Romans started doing more conquest of Europe and converting a lot of the pagans, they actually moved. I think it was probably 500 years later, but maybe not that long. I'm not an encyclopedia here, folks. What do you want? They
Google that shit, man.
I guess we could. They brought All Saints Day into the fall and made it November 1st, the day after Halloween. The reason they did that is because the pagans were celebrating the Halloween, what we call Halloween now, but it's basically it was called Samhain at the time, mm-hmm. And I still don't know why they pronounce it Samhain when it's spelled Samhain.
Well, you have to ask Danzig.
Yeah, he probably knows.
Danzig would know, but. To me, I couldn't imagine anything May. I mean, that's, bright, right in the middle of everything growing. And mm-hmm. To me, the fall, when things are starting to die and you start to have the darkness. And to me, that's just the perfect time for me. I just feel that's the one time I feel that band of time. I actually feel more grounded and connected to this planet.
Absolutely. That way ended up being because the pagans in whether it was Western Europe or the British Isles, they had a nature worship ceremony for basically their whole religion was structured around nature worship. So mm-hmm. when things died in the fall, that was when they had their ceremony honoring the dead. And that was when they said the veil between the world of the living and the dead was at its thinnest.
Exactly.
And
which would the passing through, you could pass from one thing to the other and find loved ones, or sometimes not very nice characters could pass through and haunt you and do bad things to you.
And as in the esoteric traditions, as well as in the pagan traditions, the as above, so below mantra really fits here. So you can look at the physical body. So you're looking at the physical death of the earth, but we're also looking at the spiritual death of the people, the inhabitants of the earth at the same time. And so that was why they tied the two together. Just like spring was a time for rebirth, and everything that was dead was coming back. You get into the winter tradition, Jesus' birthday, December 25th. I know it's not necessarily because we celebrate Easter, the death and resurrection of Easter of Jesus in the spring.
Yeah.
But if you look at that's definitely connected to the death of everybody, of all the plants and everything like that in the winter, and then in the spring it comes back. So there's a long tradition of tying the spiritual to the physical in all the different thought processes of the world, really, if you think about it, and you go back to the different philosophies, back to ancient Greece, and as far back Babylon as we can even trace these things. They tied the spiritual procession to the physical procession through the year. But Halloween, to get back on to that, was when the Catholics first named the holiday, was in the early 600s. It was to venerate the saints, and they really didn't have a holiday for the saints. So they were making this one on to venerate the people in the Catholic Church who they felt like who had exemplified the workings of Christ on earth. And so one of the things that this was not really a spooky holiday, but at the same time they venerated, and I'm sorry to keep using that word, but they worshipped God through using relics of the saints. This could be bones, this could be hair, this could be pieces of their skin, this could be their parts of their garments, and they would use these to worship God, thank God for everything they'd given them, and pay respects to the saints who had come and performed miracles in God's name. So kind of was a natural change when it came to the Christian conquest of Europe for them to offer this basically to the pagans to tie it into their existing holiday on Samhain with the day for remembering the dead souls of the Christian martyrs and the Christian saints. And then before that, they created All Hallows Eve. And
that has such a ring to it, doesn't it?
It really does.
It does.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have come up. I would have been like Gene Simmons. I would have trademarked that. So that's very, very, very. I mean, there's just the ring to it.
Gene Simmons adds so many trademarks, and I don't know if it's correct. You guys can fact check me out there in internet world. But I heard that the reason that nobody ever calls orange juice OJ in movies is because Gene Simmons trademarked the phrase. OJ. In reference to orange juice. So
I've heard that too, and that probably is a dollar sign. But if somebody hadn't trademarked that, they was crazy not to.
Yeah.
So
more
power to the demon.
And I've heard the same thing, like about, I don't know if it's Gene Simmons, probably not, but somebody copyrighted the Happy Birthday song. So that's why you almost never hear somebody sing the birthday song in a movie. And I noticed black movies in particular, they'll be like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. And I'd hear that, when that was in the 90s, and I would think, well, do black people sing the birthday song differently than I do? Because that's what I heard in the movie. But no, they don't. They sing the same birthday song we do. They just, somebody has a copyright on it. So
they're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Had to pay for it. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
But Gene supposedly owns the orange juice. But yeah, they in Europe it was more of a reverential holiday. It wasn't like we really do today with ghost stories and all this kind of stuff. And
Mr. Beef, I may be wrong, and I was wrong once. I think I alluded to that in our last video. But it does seem like they have to create a boogeyman to save people from. The church seems to be involved in all these pagan, they rewrite things, and almost everything falls on the same date, has a name that's close, or there's some kind of a Greek god or entity that kind of plays those roles, but they kind of rehash it, remold it to things that you have to, that's out to get you. There's this, in the darkness, there's always something evil that wants to consume you. And the only way you can survive is to go through the church and become saved. And there's always this thing that only they can save you from, So I kind of look at some of these things, they want to make vampires evil, and all the movies have showed them as evil. And I've always tried to be a different type of vampire. It is known my feelings towards adults who
abuse
children.
Yes.
And what my take on that is, I actually had what you call somebody who is of influence reached to me because I'm a doctor, and I have resources, and they come to me wanting me to go to this island and take a vacation, and I'm like, I'm not a fan of the sun.
Yeah, you're
not a big sun fan.
Tropical island.
And they're like, well, you'll have so much fun, and you and your wife and your children. I'm like, well, I have no wife and children. And they're like, oh, we could supply the children.
They could probably supply you whatever you wanted, it sounds like.
On these things in the internet and out in the world, you're not supposed to use certain words because it's a trigger. And some people say unalive them, but let's just say this person who come to me with this offer, they made a donation of plasma that was life-changing.
They made an involuntary life-changing donation of plasma,
Well,
I would say.
I would say that they did, and they're no longer in that business.
Yeah.
So evil can be sometimes destroyed by something that is perceived as evil.
Interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned, to take it back to the
not to be too dark.
No.
Because I had a lot of fun doing that.
Absolutely not. But
he did not hang himself.
And we're still waiting. We're still waiting to find out what really happened. Even if Mr. Kilb, there's Dr. Kilb. There's still
Mr. Doctor,
Mr. Doctor.
We're so close now that, I've never actually treated you.
That's true.
You have treated me with some of your musical shows at night. I've went and watched some of your musical shows, and I've enjoyed
I
it.
only ever see you at night.
Well, it's funny that I'm out during the daylight, and I've had people ask me, how do you go out in the day? You must not be real. I'm like, well, I have honed and cleaned the blood to the point. Did you know that vampires can honestly go out in the solid sunlight?
No.
You know what's caused them not to be able to?
What's that?
The vaccines and the poison in the blood. So when they started to consume these things, all the artificial GMOs and all the red dyes, 59, 69. Most people probably like 69.
Probably.
Boy, I'm not going to go into that. But that is what caused the vampires to, it's almost like a condition that caused them not to be able to go out in the sunlight because the blood is polluted. And since I cleaned my own stock and purified it, the sun stings a little.
Yep.
But here I am.
Interesting. So more. That's if you believe in Maha or Make America Healthy Again, it only tracks that the vampires would gain from that. I did not know that was why you weren't able to go into the sun. Now you're naturally, as a vampire, unable to go into the sun for long periods of time. But clean blood allows you, if I understand you correctly, to be able to move about in the daylight.
And most vampires hunt at night because it's not because they can't be in the sun. It's because it's just easier.
It's easier to identify you.
To track people because most people in the dark can't see.
Well, and also you're looking, I guess, for in the nighttime. If you remember the interview with the vampire, Brad Pitt's character in the movie,
they wanted me for that role.
Yeah, and I don't.
They did.
That bit.
They approached me, and thought about it deeply, and they showed it's either you or this guy. And I'm like, that guy? He's no Dr. Kilb. So, I had other arrangements, and I had a lot of concert tickets that I already purchased.
I guess the idea was that he had been turned as a vampire at a younger age, and so that may have been why he
had a lot less battle scars.
That's what I was going to say. They may have worked that into.
I agree with that point.
Into the movie at that time because.
But I would never follow Scientology.
Is Brad Pitt Scientology? We don't know, but in that movie, Louis the vampire, he did not like the fact that he had to feed on human beings or mammals for sustenance. So he would try to attack the most wretched and the worst parts of society, and he actually looked at himself as basically an arbiter.
He was cleaning up the bottom feeders, exactly. the less productive of society.
Is that the way you look at it?
That was something I interjected that I would have to have that in the script, and the lady who wrote it.
They must have went ahead and changed that for you, but then they chose Brad Pitt.
They steal everything.
I guess they didn't choose him, but
everything is stolen from Dr. Kilb.
Well, I wouldn't say they stole it necessarily. They just came to you for expertise, and you gave them
Dr. Kilb's bank account did not go up any.
Oh, well, that's true.
So, but it all worked out. The plasma center is turned into so many, great things. The alcohol. The Vodka Moon has turned into some really great things. I met so many people, really cool people. So I'm a movie,
Now, as a vampire, are you actually intoxicated when you drink the spirits? Because I don't know if you remember the movie from, I think it was like 1998, the Kevin Smith movie Dogma. The angels would try to consume alcohol in the movie, and they would have to spit it back out into a cup because they couldn't actually swallow it and couldn't become intoxicated, but they liked the ritual of consuming alcohol. Is it similar for you, or are you actually able to ingest the alcohol?
The only time I actually feel normal is when I drink alcohol.
Okay, so you imbibe regularly.
So yes, daily, hourly. I'll get up in the middle of the day.
Now, do you get a better? Do you get better sustenance, better nutrition from the blood of someone who has consumed alcohol versus someone who hasn't?
I don't think there's any difference. I really believe that because I basically run my blood through a still.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, and
so you remove all the impurities.
Yeah. And actually, when we talk about alcohol. This is my Dr. Kilb hat. I also have a, let's see here where it's at. There it is. When I talk about alcohol, and I have to speak up because I'm not on my main speaker, I got to put on my moonshine hat. So what do you think about that?
It's very befitting.
So when we talk about alcohol, I have to put on this hat because that's more, I become more... It's like whatever hat you put on, you become that person.
Face away from me so everybody can see the pin that you have on this side.
Oh, that's Black Sabbath.
Let's turn this
way. Black Sabbath.
There we go.
And I just want to say, God bless Ozzy Osbourne. I miss him. God, he was doing such great work. I wanted him to do Bark at the Vampire, but he went with Bark at the Moon and dressed up like a werewolf. I was kind of offended, but God bless him. I love Ozzy. But yes, getting back to the alcohol, I take all blood, run it through the still, and that purifies it. So the only time I actually get buzzed is when I'm drinking Vodka Moon. That's the only alcohol I consume. Especially the Blood Moon is my favorite for all purposes. You understand why.
Indeed.
So, but I would imagine anybody who drinks alcohol, it's for a reason. It's to change the way you feel.
Well, they call it for spirits for a reason.
The spirits are flowing tonight.
Indeed.
Or today.
Well, Halloween is upon us very soon. And before we switch topics, I do want to ask you, as you mentioned, the lycans, the lycanthropes. Is there a feud with the lycanthropes? Is there a battle? Is it just is there a power struggle at all? Or are they just totally below we are? Because the way I look at it is, when we look at, like I said, as above, so below, when we look at the different religions, a lot of times Satan is used to represent, or the devil, or whatever the character is in a particular religion, the baser instincts of mankind in order to survive. So, in order to survive, man needs to eat, he needs to fuck, and he needs to not be killed by his fellow man. So, kind of our base needs are the things that propel us forward in this world, the physical world, and there are spiritual aspects also. But it seems to me that the lycanthropes are kind of tied to the physical world. What is it about the power of blood that gives you power, and what is different about you and the vampires? What actually ties you? What actually separates the vampire from the werewolf?
Well, as you know, the werewolf is always a very bloody, very animal, where I would assume vampires, as myself, are still contain some type of human dignity, some type of code, some type of beliefs, to where even though we do kill, in the past, some killed, I would take the donations. Yeah, I would rather take the donation instead of, the old school, vampire type thing. Werewolves are basically savage animals who just, it's not so much feeding, it's just the killing part, the violent, almost like a wolf attacking, a savagery, where a vampire almost always goes towards females, and that's almost a sexual feeding type action.
Well, there is a penetration, and that is sexual.
And it's always just to do with the blood, not flesh and destroying. Now you can use that to actually kill or unalive a person.
It's okay. We can say the K word on this channel
if you would want to take it that far. But most of it's just a feeding, and it's almost a relation type thing. Just like if you're in a relationship with a woman or a man or whatever, and you're feeding off of that love and that emotion and somebody being there, that support. A vampire also uses the person's energy that's derived from the blood to feed that relationship. So that I would look at a vampire as more, some people would disagree that that's love, that's a relationship, where a werewolf is more of a destructing force that has to be satisfied through complete destruction of the other person, the victim.
So if I understand correctly, the vampire uses the blood for spiritual purposes, whereas the werewolf uses the blood more for carnal purposes.
Exactly. Where you say it's connected more to earth, that's primordial. That's feeding. That's eating of flesh, and that's animalistic. Where a vampire is more evolved and more of a thought and more of an emotion on taking blood from someone and nurturing and it's a substance to their, it's a feeding. And that's more when you look at someone, you feed, you don't feed on everyone. You feed on something that just the same as an attraction. You see a lady, you're a man.
You're not going to bang every lady you see. You're
exactly. You see one, and just like that one guy in the movie, I like to throw up the movies. He said, "I've traveled across oceans of time to."
I'll drag my sack through broken glass for 2 miles.
To soak your blood.
To smell your farts.
Yeah. So I would think that I guess, put simply, vampires are a little more evolved than werewolves.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because it's like the vampire is attracted to the spiritual nature of the blood, whereas the vampire, the lycanthrope, the werewolf is attracted to the physical nature. He's attracted to the carnal nature of the feeding, the pleasure, the killing, whereas the vampire is attracted to something in the blood. It seems like. And I've heard that actually relates to the oxygenation of the blood, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of these ancient rituals were performed in sacred oak groves, because the oak tree provides more oxygen for the brain, which oxygenates the blood, which allows more spiritual connection.
Like a higher, because you have more oxygen in your brain. Everything works better when you're fully oxygenated. So you should be able to reach a higher plateau of thought and feeling if your body is fully charged.
A lot of the esoteric traditions and the religions. A lot of people say it's encoded in the religions, but they actually start at the base of the spine. If you take the 7 chakras from the Eastern traditions, they start at the base of the spine and they work to the crown of the head above the third eye, which is actually the crown of the head is said to be your connection to heaven, where the root chakra, or your ass bone, is your connection to the earth.
Where our tail used to be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty wild.
Well, that's
I'm sure you're thinking, where's Dr. Kilb taking me? I've kind of been all around the graveyard tonight.
Well, that's really where we like to go.
It usually happens that way. It's been a minute. When you're only here every Halloween, there's a lot of time and a lot of things go back and forth. So when I come through your doors and you invited me in,
I did.
Once I get in here, I'm just like, I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
That's a phrase you're...
Yeah, I'm absolutely familiar with that.
Candy store.
I grew up in the 80s, so I remember the candy stores. I know the candy stores aren't around
Oh,
now.
the 80s. Oh, so much fun.
Before cameras, I bet that was a lot of fun for a vampire. I mean, there were some cameras in the 80s, but it was not like it is today. And there was cocaine everywhere. I mean, all the people did cocaine. What was that like? What is that like for a vampire?
There was lots of...
if you go to a rave, just folks, before you...
sex and cocaine.
To understand what I'm talking about, go watch...
Music was the best.
Go watch the B-52s performing Rock Lobster in a club in the 1980s. You want to talk about cocaine? Watch that video. Now, what would that be like to feed on the blood of somebody who's ingested in a substance like that?
Oh, well, that's different from alcohol.
I bet.
I would never filter that out. If it's in there, yeah, you get a bump. That's a phrase, bump. Yeah, you get a bump.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm all good with the '80s. It was really good. A lot of politicians suck, just like they do now.
Yeah.
But I think we're making progress. I think things are going to turn around. I'm just, I don't know, maybe it's just being here tonight in your abode here with all this new technology, and I can reach so many people. People are watching this now and they're saying, I like that guy. I want to hear what he's got to say. I want to drink his alcohol.
So you're bullish on humanity, you'd say?
Yeah.
Bullish, with no pun intended. If you think about it.
I'm very bullish. Because even if an asteroid hits tomorrow, which, some people say it's here, if it's alien world, I think they made a movie about space vampires. I'm open to travel.
You're open for a space H-1B for vampires?
Exactly. I mean, let's, gray blood may be as good.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. Have you ever ingested any alien blood, or has it all been humans? Or
other than across the border type alien?
Yeah.
No.
Now I brought up interview with the vampire earlier. Now Louis, in his saga, I don't remember if they went into it in the movie or not, but in the book, he would eat like rabbits and rats and stuff like that because he didn't want to kill people. Have you ever resorted to that? Is there any difference between? I mean, obviously, it seems to me that there would be a difference between as ensouled creatures like human beings, that there would be a difference between them and something like rats.
Huge difference. I mean, I've dabbled. I'm not going to lie to you, Mr. Beef. I've went down some dark roads and I've done some things I'm not proud of. But human blood, there's nothing like it.
So basically, you can use the. This is the way it was in the book, in the interview with the vampire book. You could use the mammal blood of whatever kind to stay alive, but it was not actually nourishing. Or would that be an accurate representation?
We have ground beef, and then you have, a tomahawk steak.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. Yes, you will stay alive, and it will get you through. But damn, it'll give you the shits.
that was depicted in the book.
It will mess with your internal, and most people don't think we have internal, but we have internal.
I was going to ask you about that.
We are internal
because there's a movie. It was called Dogma. It's a Kevin Smith movie. I think it was 1998. If you haven't seen the movie, go check it out. It's really awesome, especially as somebody who was brought up in Catholic church, or no, I wasn't brought up in Catholic, but was brought up in the Christian church. It actually looks at a lot of the parts of the faith that we look at as dogmatic, and asks us why we look at it that way. And it's just a really funny movie. It's just interesting. It's not sacrilegious or anything like that, like a lot of those movies attempt to be, but it goes into the why. And now, what was I talking about right before that? Honestly, lost my train of thought there.
When you said dogma, I thought like a robotic dog.
I was talking about drinking blood.
I think the Vodka Moon is starting to, because I always get a little more, like you just asked me how I felt about the prospects of mankind in our future, and I felt bullish, and that's probably mostly before the alcohol. That's probably if I was straight stone sober and it wasn't this close to Halloween, I'd probably be like, we're fucked.
Well, I totally. Oh yeah, the reason I ask you about Dogma is because in the movie, the angels and the demons are not able to imbibe alcohol, and
they spit it out too.
Yeah, they just spit it out. I just wondered, was that accurate for you, or do you actually have, because you mentioned the internals of the vampire, so you actually process the blood? Do you process the alcohol as well? Does that actually affect your?
Just like anything, if you consume something that's poison or doesn't agree with your system, your body will react.
So what about garlic?
I love it on pizza. That's all made up Hollywood bullshit. Italian? Could you imagine being an Italian and I bet somebody's Italian, and if I don't kill them, I just bite them.
Yeah.
And then they wake up and they're like, "Fuck, my whole heritage, you mother, why did you do this to me?"
So you still eat food, but it's for pleasure, not for sustenance.
Oh, well, pleasure's the whole thing.
Okay.
Everything is pleasure. Pain, if you're not doing something that makes you better, you're getting enough from what you're doing that's bad for you. You will only change when there's enough pain there. So I look at people doing dumb shit, and I'm like, why? Because they're
received enough pain from
they're getting enough. Trained by pain. You're having enough pleasure from what you're doing that keeps you from changing.
Yeah.
And until this world, and you would think by now we've suffered enough pain to make that change. But for whatever reason, there's not been enough pain inflicted yet for mankind to change. And that's what I'm hoping to stay alive to see, is that we make a mass shift to this, this change.
Stay undead long enough for it to see, I guess.
I mean, I just want to, every kid should be able to go knock on a door, say trick or treat, and get a bag full of candy, and not worry about a razor blade being in it. Yeah. Not worry about fentanyl being in it.
We talked about that in a previous Halloween episode, and I don't know if it was to try to ruin Halloween for people or what the purpose of this was, but the guy who poisoned his pixie sticks. You remember that story from back in the late 70s or early 80s? I can't remember which one. But there was a guy, I believe
it was 80s.
This guy, he his kids, one of his kids died. 2 of them got poisoned, and he reported to the police that it was from their Halloween candy, and they found out he had actually poisoned their pixie sticks himself to try to claim an insurance, to do an insurance scam. So that one, and there was one instance of a razor blade in an apple, and it was something similar to that. So it's like the threat of that was hugely exaggerated versus the reality.
Once it's there, then it becomes like an urban legend of razor blades and an apple.
So now everybody checks their kids' candy, and that's a good thing. I mean, because who knows what could really be in there? You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
There's crazy people out there that might throw anything.
See, that's the people that I want to take care of.
Yes.
That's the people that I have no mercy. I have pure vengeance and wrath upon those type people. And there's a lot of people out there like that, and that's sad. They can blame it on video games, or I didn't get a pony when I was a kid. You know what? I didn't get a pony. Did you get a pony when you was a kid?
Never did.
See, and we're still turned out pretty good. So
I think a lot of that comes down to the desire to absolve oneself of one's actions, and
it's always somebody else's fault.
Exactly. And there's so much of that, and it's so easy. It's human nature, I believe. I've certainly found myself in cases where I have tried to blame other people for something that was totally my fault.
Or your circumstances, or your environment.
Yeah.
Or your luck. I mean, just the way things turned out.
Yeah. And
I understand that. I was human once. I look back now and at some of the things that I've done. It was really 99% my choice, my fault.
Maybe there's always external factors, but we choose how we ultimately react to things, and I feel like that really can negatively affect people when they decide to blame other people for the things that they do themselves.
You know, the devil made me do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's as old as time. You know, there's a whole institution built on this, and people making tons of money based upon, you know, I can save you from the horn one. You know, he's there to tempt you, and it's really just human lust. We're such a flawed product.
Yeah.
When it really comes down to it, I think if we just all kind of lighten up and just kind of not be so judgmental of others, because we sure don't want to be judged that way, you know.
Yeah, I think it comes right down to it. If someone is harming another person, then we should obviously judge them for that. But
exactly,
if someone's harming their own soul, it really does not benefit us to judge them and try to, and maybe to instruct them and help them. But there is such a thing. Would you agree, as a vampire, as destruction of one's sins against one's own soul that don't necessarily harm other people, but that harm oneself? Would you agree with that? And how does that affect the blood?
If you're doing something to yourself and you're not harming anyone else, or you have a participating partner, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with whatever you want to stick your entity in, if that makes any sense. I don't see anything wrong. It's only when you do something to someone else, then you need to be dealt with, and that's the way it should be. And even in a place like the prisons and jails, where you're dealing with some of the worst people, for whatever reason, they're there for usually, you know, crimes against humanity. They're there because they done things that under our structure puts them there. And when you put somebody else in there who done something so vile that there's a code that they justify the unliving of these people, that tells you that there's a certain level, even amongst thieves and murderers and the worst of humanity, that they see a worse kind of crime and a worse kind of evil, that they would do away with them if they were given the chance. And that's when you read these things, it's like, well, I believe that most people are the same. Most people want to not do harm to people and just want to be left alone. And it's when you see these people trying to justify what they're doing for whatever reason. I've always loved the movies and the whole stories where someone who done something really bad gets, whether it's a spirit or something comes back to, they actually have to pay for their sins and their wrongdoings. To me, that's always gave me, whether that's a spiritual power out there that seeks vengeance on people. I've always loved a story like that. I know it's not romantic and all happy and feeling, but when somebody who done something wrong to people and then this judgment comes down on them from maybe from another world, maybe from another spirit world comes and actually, I've loved old horror comics for years. You see these stories like where somebody done all these bad things and then they get paid back.
Yes.
God, it just feels.
We feel the Schadenfreude.
It just feels so good to see justice laid out, even as brutal as it is. It gets laid out against these people, and that makes me quite happy.
Well, that's a terrific segue to the last thing I want to talk about tonight, which is our favorite horror movies. And I want to look at the horror movies that I love and see how they compare to the horror movies not the horror movies that you love, but the difference between a vampire's perspective and a human being's perspective from looking at some of these horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I get into the horror movies and you're talking about the Schadenfreude of enjoying the ending to someone who deserves it,
the payback.
I want to look at horror movies from this perspective, and here's my hypothesis on it. And I've noticed around 2001, 2, there was a few good horror movies, but I think horror movies really went on a downward trend around the early 2000s till it's. I think it's starting to come up a little maybe today. I've seen some recent ones that were okay, like the Omen. The first Omen was a little better, but I want to go back to the idea here, and here it is, that I feel like horror movies were better when they were made from a director or a filmmaker and for an audience who had a Christian moral worldview. And the reason I say that is because it seems like in the early 2000s, we went into a lot of this nihilistic kind of horror movies where, and I even had an idea to make a horror movie like this at the time. I had the idea that I wanted to do a horror movie at a Christian camp where all the best kids, were the first ones attacked by the monster and killed. Because that would be the opposite of the traditional movie. And
because usually it's the ones having sex in the woods and smoking dope and partying.
Exactly.
Almost every time, right?
So I wanted to do something different. But
they're the ones who get it.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you shouldn't have been screwing around the woods.
Yeah. And so that was my idea. I wanted to turn this on its head. I want to make a movie about this where maybe...
That's a very interesting perspective, Mr. Beef.
Well, I ultimately decided that it would not work. And the reason I did that is because even if you look at the... There's certainly things about Christian parents or something where, take, for example, in my screenplay that I was writing, I was going to have a gay kid who decided that his overbearing Christian parents were too much and that he was going to, take it out on all these Christian, and everybody was going to think it was a monster or some kind of supernatural thing, but it was a gay kid who was actually... Pretty
controversial, brother.
Yeah. Well, that was my idea for my film. And if you remember the movie Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
It's kind of derivative of that, even though I didn't really realize it at the time. But when you get right down to it, the ultimate thing was there was no real root in a moral framework in my movie, right? So I think that's why it wouldn't work, because of course you could use the theme of overbearing, immoral people who were forcing you to conform to the rules But I think the ultimate reason that the Christian framework really works as far as a movie is because it's all about purity. It's all about doing the right thing. It's all about doing things that hold society together. And when you break from this, like you go out and like as a teenager, it may not seem like such a big deal, but you go out and you get drunk and you have sex out of wedlock. Like that used to be a really, really big deal. And it was like, in a horror movie, you would get killed for doing that kind of thing. You look at the 1970s, 1980s horror movie.
Exactly.
That's the kind of thing that got you murdered by Freddy Krueger.
And most of them is teenagers out in the woods, drinking, having unprotected sex, just really, and those are always the first ones that get whacked. You know? And there's always somebody who was a good person.
Yeah.
Who the evil was so bad that even the good person, you ever notice that? Yeah. There was a good person who could not escape. The evil was so, and you would think, well, this person was really the good, person, but they could not escape the.
You know why I think it is, and why I think it works is because they were brought down by their sin. Even as a good person, like your sin or you're choosing to ignore the things that you know are good in order to do things that are evil can lead to continuance of that behavior. And I think that's ultimately why horror movies were so good, is because they were morality plays. And yes, they were based in a Christian worldview, but the Christian worldview is just kind of, it's how we've all learned that we can live along with one another. You love your neighbor, or at least you tolerate him. You don't want to kill everybody that's different from you. You want to give things to people that need it, and most importantly, you forgive trespasses against you. Because if you hold a grudge,
that's a hard one.
If you hold a grudge forever, that's what really destroys societies. That's what really destroys families. That's what really destroys relationships, is not being able to let that thing go, especially when it's something that was actually wrong, really wrong, that was done against you. So you feel justified in holding on to that. So that's really the root of Christianity, is letting go of that thing that causes you to hate your fellow man in some way, and this is really why you react negatively to most of the things. Is if you look at it from a philosophical perspective rather than a religious perspective, it's the harm that was done to you that you hold on to that justifies the harm you do to other people. So I really feel like that's why these Christian morality tales, and like a lot of, even if they don't necessarily explicitly mention Christ or God, they're
it's
from
still,
a
it's still based upon those beliefs, that like the commandments.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not. All those things have an effect on everything, really. Whether you see our laws, thou shalt not kill. Why not? Why? Where's that all come from? The law that you should not kill someone. It all basically comes from the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. So no matter, as much as you try to separate modern society and the way we, in this country, the way we live and the way we, they're so much influenced from religion.
Well, and
it's really not a bad thing.
Even if you don't believe in God, the Ten Commandments are things that you do as a human being.
Exactly.
It's ways that you treat other people around you in order to have you all not kill each other and destroy everything.
Yeah.
Because if you bang your neighbor's wife, and steal his stuff and then lie about it, I guarantee you somebody is going to want to come kill you over that.
Most of the time, if she's really hot, I would own up to it.
Well, yeah, but
I wouldn't deny it.
Well, even if you didn't lie about it, that you break those commandments, it's going to make other people want to kill you.
She's her blood type is very rare, and I couldn't help myself.
RH negative, huh? Is that your thing?
I had to go after her.
You're an RH negative chaser.
And she's hot too. So, yeah. I like where you're going with this.
Well, with that in mind, I think that some of my favorite horror movies, which are based in that moral framework, and like I said, even like a something like Freddy Krueger movies, all the different Nightmare on Elm Street movies, they may not actually mention God other than they have a couple little like grab your crucifix, and there's a couple little scenes with like a priest in it and stuff. But overall, that it's not doesn't really God doesn't really play into the Nightmare on Elm Street universe.
Because isn't he a pedophile, basically, who murdered children, done horrible things, but yet he has all this power.
He has all the power because...
Why does he have this power?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because all the parents, instead of doing the godly thing and letting go of that sin against him...
So it's payback.
They went and murdered him, brutally murdered him, and burned him alive, and their sin is it comes back on their children. And the threat could have been ended. They could have executed Freddy Krueger without hate in their heart, but because it was the right thing to do to protect humanity from him. But they didn't. They, full of hate, they went and revenge.
So they kind of gave him the fuel to become...
They gave him the power.
The monster and the control and power they had once he was dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I think even though they don't explicitly mention God, it comes right down to that Christian concept of you don't forgive Freddy Krueger because Freddy Krueger deserves forgiveness.
Yeah.
You forgive Freddy Krueger because your soul will not survive if you don't.
Do you think Hollywood as a whole, who usually stands back from religion, don't want to really, it's a whole different thing. You think they keep that out of scripts and out of movies and out of stories? Because they have to separate themselves. They can't come out as morally, like what you just described. The reason Krueger has the power he has, they could not tell that story that way.
I think it's more that a lot of them don't understand it, and that they grew up on horror movies and they see like a bloody, gruesome horror scene and they see a decent story, and they think, well, I can make a horror movie. And these are the ingredients for it. And they never understood the philosophy underlying, which is...
So it's not... you don't believe it's intentional.
I think there's both. But I think there's people that don't believe in it. I think there's people that never understood why it made a good horror movie. But
the first one was my favorite.
I think
it's really dark, gritty. I like the whole. You can't get away from this thing.
Yeah, you can't even get to sleep. You're
usually the first original. Like Dr. Kilb from the original.
Yep.
I think that's everything after that's just a cheap knockoff copy.
Like Kellogg's Cornflakes says, the original and best.
If you put that on a box and they allow it, then run with
it. The Freddy Krueger though, he's a good start with it. But you go to like something like The Exorcist. What a good movie that is.
You are talking the original, the original. Linda Blair.
I'm not a fan of any of the rest.
Brutal. I mean, I don't think people had any who went to the theater for the first time.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't know what you're.
Not saying that there wasn't. There was. If you dug deep enough, you could. We're a little desensitized now because you get on this. What do you got here? The internet, and type in whatever perverse kind of whatever, and it's there. Find it. Back then, to go to the theater and see that kind of thing that's also talking about religion, and the pure violence and some of the scenes that were on The Exorcist, just people, I don't think they were ready for it.
And you may have even refuted part of my point right there, because you mentioned the internet and the availability of horrors that the world has never seen, even in horror movies. You watch, like I watched a movie, one of my favorite horror movies that we talked about today was The Devil Rides Out, which you can get this copy of The Devil Rides Out on Blu-ray. You can get that on Amazon, and this is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's a Hammer film, starring Christopher Lee as a good guy. He's usually the bad guy, but he's awesome as a good guy in that movie. And one of my favorite movies, and it's based in a Christian worldview. And I think one of the reasons that it really works, in addition to the morality tales, and the reason was I think we've been desensitized to it is because think about the horrors that you see on the internet every day. You look in the Ukraine war, you look at out of the Middle East. For the last 20 years, you've seen videos of beheadings. You've seen videos of just people being vaporized. In real life, you've seen. I mean, just look at the Charlie Kirk assassination. Look how graphic that is compared to what you would see in a horror movie in the 1980s. I've been watching horror movies my whole life, and I saw that Charlie Kirk video, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so awful."
Very brutal.
What
surprises me that you get on a cellular device, phone, and apps that are readily available for children, the atrocities, and you're like, how does somebody, why would you post these type, even though some of them are just simple freak accidents, but happen to be videoed. It's very brutal, and children. I mean, like you said, we grew up watching, videos that depicted, and some more realistic than others, but nothing that these are real deaths, real brutality about the way, humanity and very, very dark side of humanity. And it's just at a click at a button, it's there. It makes me wonder what the future generation, eventually, if you become desensitized, you don't have no empathy. And
I wonder if did you guys have this? I know you were a child a long time ago, but there was the Faces of Death videos that people would see in the 80s and 90s.
Well, I was probably 110, 115 maybe when I saw that, and I was like, some of it, eating from a monkey's brain, and some of that I was like, well, that's an interesting cocktail hors d'oeuvre, monkey brain. But the actual brutality of murder and stuff like that, I still think that most people don't want to see that.
I agree.
Most people don't want to, even if it's fake in a theater. It provokes a reaction out of most people.
Well, I always noticed was all the kids who had seen those movies and talked about them were all the most messed up kids that I knew.
Who watched Faces of Death.
Yeah. And I couldn't help but notice them in some over the years. And I saw like Rotten.com in the early days of the internet, and
that's one that used to be very the darkest of the dark. No matter if it was murder, death, sexuality, everything combined. That the darkest, most pieces of fragment that you of nightmare. Just a few keystrokes away, and it's there. So you wonder. We were never, we used to look at paintings, like old paintings of ladies who were kind of mid-dress, maybe, and that was erotic. That was because it left so much to the imagination. Now, and you see maybe a painting of a battlefield, and you think, oh, but what we have now is just a pure stream of filth and the evil, and a lot of it is maybe even AI. It's artificial intelligence creating stuff and putting souls and a life into something that's not even real. It didn't even happen, but it looks like it happened. If it happened to someone's mind and it's out there, then it becomes a reality to some.
So I want to touch back on that, but so let's remember that with it happening in your mind, it becomes reality. Because I want to think about a golem from the ancient occult traditions, the creation of an artificial being. So let's keep that in mind. But I do want to finish the thought that we were talking about with the internet, perhaps things like Rotten.com. Live Leak, all these different sites where you see all these different brutalities that happen in the real world. People record them and upload them. Has this perhaps caused caused the decline of horror movies? I don't know. Has that related to the decline of good horror movies or not?
Well, if you think, Mr. Beef, if you have a movie that is considered modern time brutality, just groundbreaking, something that people haven't seen, and then you go back to movies that were put out, say, 70s, and you see the blood and whatever that may be, there's only so, there's a limit to what you can, unless you really do it real. And I think there was a cannibal type movie that they thought was so real that the filmmaker had to come into court because they thought these cannibals were actually murdering the people.
I don't remember.
But there's something, I believe, once you show something that was real, that happened in real time and is posted, it has to have an effect on the masses' mentality and what they expect. Because if I go back and it's just like, say you're back in the 70s or early 80s, probably 70s, and you see, we have a cartoon called Land of the Lost. It's got dinosaurs. And you see that and you're like, oh, this is really cool. It looks real. And then you go back and here's Jurassic Park.
Totally.
And you go back and look at, so you're looking at real death, real murder, real rape, violence, the worst atrocities that mankind can inflict on itself. And then you see what Hollywood tries to emulate. I believe, like you're talking about, is that what reality is always going to be darker, deeper, and more real, especially with people who grow up on a click of a button having access to this. What's going to stimulate them? What's going to make them have an emotion over? If you see somebody die 1,000,000 times and you see it again, you may not.
No, big deal.
Yeah, it becomes not real, even though the reality becomes not real.
Yeah.
And that's a dark place to be, because these people are eventually going to be taking care of people and making decisions on what is the quality of life and what resources to put to that.
Yeah.
Once you get a certain age, it's just like Logan's Run.
Your bleeper starts
going
going.
back, yeah. And you'll just think, well, you get to a certain thing, you're not putting in enough, you're not worth the resources. They just, So to me, it's a dark place to go, and I would rather try to be bullish on human.
Yeah. So maybe I think maybe rather than contradicting my view about the God-based worldview being necessary for a good horror movie, it might actually reinforce it, because
if anything, you have to have good and evil. And you have to have hope that there is a savior or something that redeems you and gives you a reason to move forward, a reason to treat others in a way that you'd want to be treated. Because once you break that system down and there's nothing there to school or define the next generation, then it doesn't, it could go really bad.
Well, I think if you don't have the worldview that there's good and evil, and then horror movies kind of are, like I said, they're morality tales. They're to show us directly how a good horror movie, how our negative behavior, even something that we feel like maybe just hurts ourselves, like having sex as a teenager in the middle of the woods, like as a teenager, we say, well, that's not harming anybody else, but it really could create another life that you're not ready to take care of. There's
always consequences to your actions.
Emotional consequences. There's all these different things that we don't really look at, and the horror movie is a good way to take that action and say, here, concrete, Jason comes out of the woods, or his mama comes out of the water, or Jason comes out of the water, his mama comes out of the woods, chops you up. You get a direct, end, a directly correlated response to your sin.
With your sin, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like, we go into the modern world, like, we see all these videos of atrocities happen around the world. They're way worse than anything we've seen in the horror movie, and they're not anything connected to somebody's actual sin, or at least if they are, we don't see the context of it. All we see is brutality and hate and murder and bloodshed and all these awful things. And I think it's the same way with horror movies. When you don't see the connection to, when you just have the idea that random things happen and here's an evil person, well, what is really evil then? But this is the person preying on humanity, and you're supposed to think it as profound or take anything away from it. I feel like that's why a lot of these horror movies don't work. I feel like that's why my horror movie wouldn't have worked, even though like it seemed like a good idea to me at the time to have, you know, somebody, a killer disconnected. Mine wasn't entirely disconnected from consequences. Mine was people who was like their Christian parents were overbearing and not actual Christians, and just. But I'm
telling you, somebody would probably buy the script and make it, because I think they're so hungry for any kind of content now that they're just looking to. They can't even remake. Even start off with something that was really great and turn that into something. They have to screw that up too. You know, so I think they've run out of ideas. If anything, it probably needs to be more individuals who are making movies. I think that's back in the day when a lot of these horror movies were getting made were by independent people who were not, you know, in Hollywood. They were putting stuff out, and it may have only been independently released.
Look at Night of the Living Dead. I mean, it was a very small scale. The one I was talking about earlier, The Devil Rides Out, very very low budget horror movie compared to a lot of them. But you get into your modern horror films. What do you actually like? What do you think is a good horror film from the modern times? Is there anything that has come up to the standards for you?
There's very, very little. I mean, there's very little. I always go back to, people probably think, Tubi.
Yeah,
it's free app, but they show so many.
I would be totally willing to pay for no commercials on Tubi.
They actually show sometimes Hammer movies like you were talking about earlier. But I would even, and I know it's making fun of these type movies, but you go and watch them like Mystery Science Theater, where they make fun of like the giant spider invasion and all these movies. A lot of them seem to come out in the 60s and 70s. 80s took a lot of it to the next level, which, you had a lot of the slasher type movies and the colors and the quality of the movies were better because they had a bigger budget. They some become knockoffs. There are some that are very ahead of their time and actually had really good writing, really good quality of the way the shots were thought out and everything else, just like music. Usually a few people come out with something new and exciting, and then the record companies jump in there and just sign everybody that, and eventually it becomes diluted and
they
really
get
sucks.
Something they like and they try to copy
They destroy it, but you see the ones who started it. So I would probably, me personally, I like the older stuff, the older, the chiller theater type stuff. That to me is the better made, better. Maybe not on effects and budget wise, but just and maybe that's just me being an old buck,
No, I totally get it. I do have a couple of newer ones that one of them is newer. It's less than 5 years old, and one of them I'd say is less than 10 years old. I have to ask you if you've seen them to get your thoughts on it. The most recent one that I've seen that I really liked as far as a horror movie, I did think the first Omen was okay. I don't think it was great, but it was okay. But one I thought that was great recently was Late Night with the Devil. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that.
I believe it's made by IFC.
So what about that do you felt that you liked? I mean, what did it do?
Well,
was it the way it was filmed, the way the story? I mean,
honestly, it was all of it. But to get back to the version, the reason there was my hypothesis that the Christian moral worldview is missing from a lot of the horror movies. This one had it in it, and I don't want to get too much into because I don't want to spoil the movie for you because It's definitely one you want to watch because you don't. But to give you a quick summary of it, it's set in the 70s, and it looks like the 70s. It looks like a talk show set in the 70s. And this is
that's where the way the colors, the way
the colors are beautiful.
Everything like that. There's just something about that I'm always like in 1974. There's like
a brown tint.
There's just something to that. Really gritty. And now you have filters. I think that's what you call these filters to try to emulate.
We're using one now to make it not like that.
So we could have looked like we were in the 70s. We could have looked
like the 70s, yeah.
But I think that those type films, and just like Grindhouse and a lot of those things that tried to recreate that feeling and that vibe, there's a reason for that, because it was so effective, and that so many people who are older now still, like, that's what they remember, and they want to relive that fear. They want to.
And if you look at family photos and stuff from the 70s, they have a certain 70s and early 80s. They just have a certain vibe to them. I don't know how to describe it, but
and once you've seen it,
it's real.
Once you've seen it, I mean, it's just like everything else. You see commercials, and I haven't thought about in many years about a product or something, and it hit you. I remember this. I didn't remember it. I don't know where the hell it was locked away at, way back in the cobwebs. But then when you see this, it must have made an impact because you remembered it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of filmmakers want to desperately try to, but they just screw up so many things trying to recapture some of those things you can never duplicate.
Well, Late Night with the Devil, it does it does a really good job of capturing the quality of the Panavision type
like
film,
70s.
From the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And in the film, the main character is a competitor to Johnny Carson and other late night shows, and he's doing a Halloween episode. And he is bringing in a
young girl.
Yeah, that's right, a young girl who is possessed by the devil.
That's one that I've seen previews to and that's probably why it struck me, because even the backdrops, the colors, like lots of orange, earth tone kind of thing. It just reminds you of like the dating game, like
exactly,
where the people would
And I highly recommend it. That's the best horror movie I've seen in
what
many
years.
What
did you watch that on?
I believe Hulu has it on right now for free if you have Hulu.
So it's a streaming service.
Yeah, the first
Dr. Kilb may have that.
I forget what streaming service brought it out first, but it was a direct to streaming release. But anyway, in the film, the main characters bring this girl on, and as the night progresses, the whole episode takes place in the space of one episode of a late night talk show. Mm-hmm. But there are some flashbacks and stuff, and one of the things I really like about it, like I said, is it's based in the worldview that there is a right and wrong, and that this man, his internal sin, his own choices that really only affect him are going to lead to his damnation. And I think that's really why, even though he thinks these choices are only going to affect him, but they actually spread out and affect everybody around him. And not only has his sins that he's only committed against himself seemingly spread to everybody else, they eventually come back to get him. And like I said, I don't want to give away too much of the video, so that's where I'll leave it at. Mm-hmm. But if you think of something along the lines of The Exorcist or The Omen from the 1970s, these early, or I think The Exorcist was actually maybe the late 60s, but these early horror movies based on a Christian worldview, they really bring to light the way that your own actions not only harm yourself but harm those around you. And we are selfish actions. That's what it really comes down to, is our own selfishness, and how even though we're not intending to hurt somebody else, we really do. And I think that's what makes a good horror movie.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I like that. I know the one you're talking about because I've seen some previews, and it just struck me. I've always drawn to older stuff because, like I said, newer stuff just doesn't really. I guess it's because at a certain point you just start to, you become that old man that tells you to get off my lawn.
I feel like that too.
And I'm like, get off my graveyard.
Yeah.
You're messing up my my well manicured grass around my stone.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, where can everybody find you, Dr. Kilb?
well, I'll tell you what. Since I have seen you last Halloween, I've actually become a different kind of person,
Okay.
if that's possible. A different kind of doctor, different kind of. But a lot of people don't know that I used to actually write quite a bit. I used to be sort of a wordsmith. And most people do not know. And I'm going to put on my Dr. Kilb hat here, if you'll oblige me. Because I wear different hats at all different times. But I have a book that I most people do not know. I was a motivational speaker back in the day. And I have a book that's back out in print.
Stop Sucking at Life. Transylvanian bestseller. Amazing.
Now you see the bottom
By
line.
Dr. T Kilb. Even when you're dead and gone.
So even once you're dead and gone, you can still keep from sucking in life. And that's really what you leave to your loved ones and the people that you leave behind. So I kind of give you, like in chapter 69, 69 is always my favorite. Probably a favorite of yours too, Mr. B.
Naturally.
I don't know why I've just drawn to that number. But I'll talk about how in chapter 69 is to eliminate all typo negative blood types from your life.
Okay.
So you do some of these things that I say and the suggestions, but if you read this book, it will, even when you're gone, your loved ones will say, he wasn't that bad of an asshole. So that's a lot of people don't know that I'm also a writer.
So I wonder, would you sum it up as forgive us of our trespasses if we forgive those who trespass us against them, to the secret of life?
I've often said most women are like a Rolodex. If you screwed up, they'll flip through that Rolodex and say, in 1982, you said this, you did this.
They've got the card.
You didn't put the toilet seat down.
Yeah.
Where I'm more like, I've screwed up a lot. You screwed up a lot, but let's just, we still like each other. Let's hang out and forget about that stuff. Yep. That's my philosophy.
And that's not to mean you should let somebody like attack you,
unlive and
you.
let unlive.
But if somebody's not facing a direct threat to you, then it's not going to do you any good to continue to hate that person. And I think that's what a lot of the horror movies go out. I think that's what a lot of this message is, and I think that's a lot of what we could learn to actually get along with one another, to have a functional society. Is, you don't let people run over you, but at the same time, you don't let that affect you. If somebody screwed you over, you don't hang on to it for the rest of your life and let that be your raison d'etre.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, you remember they screwed you over, and you don't give them a chance to do it again.
You don't do it. Yeah, you don't let them do it again.
But and you maybe even punish them for it, but you don't do it out of hate. You do it because that you don't want them to do that to somebody else.
Mr. Beef, I've always heard this thing, karma will get you because you done me wrong. But I'm thinking, if karma had done something, if something bad happened to you, wouldn't that also mean that you done something bad to somebody else and it's just coming to roost?
A lot of people misunderstand karma. It's a balancing.
It is a balancing. So to cry and say, well, karma will get you because you done me wrong, I'm like, well, what did you do to justify the powers that be or karma to create something bad happen to you? You must have done something bad too. So we all fall short and we all screw up. Even though it's been many years since I've had a human form, I'm still born from that. And there are times that I have to realize that, I just really want to just take somebody out. And most of the time they do deserve it.
And that's what makes it the hardest. And it
is very hard. But
that's what makes it the hardest to forgive, is when
most times things just work out because it's not as bad as what you think. There's people out there who are trying to make you think there's no hope and there's no future and there's no anything for you, but there is.
Well, lessons for life, lessons from horror movies, and lessons from Dr. T Kilb. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again on the next episode of Iron Mountain Hour. Everybody go to check out East Tennessee Distillery. They got a Facebook page. They got events going on all the time. Check them out. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Kilb.
I love being here. Inner Sanctum. Inner Sanctum.
Hell yeah. Have a good night.
You too.
See you everybody next time.